This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing. Runway 7, Bravo.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning. Welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it throughout the week. Now, remember, we first go through the local stories, then we may have a movie clip or skit or something that's going on in the community, a community project, and then, as usual, we usually have the international stories at the end of the show. Now, these are the top 8 headlines that made it in this week. Let's get to the top 8 local stories that made it in. Story number 1. Democratic primary elections affected by coronavirus fears. Now, in an effort to contain the spread of the coronavirus, local officials curtail voting that was supposed to take place March 17th for the Democratic primary. Now, Mike DeWine states that if they stretch the primaries out till June 2nd, it could give voters more time to vote by mail, also known as absentee ballots. Story number 2. Is the governor's action plan working or hurting the valley and the state? Now, many residents and officials are still upset that some people are not following protocol handed down from the state, but some just don't have a choice, according to various reports. Now, in light of government actions against business owners, many owners feel there should be a better plan for them to maintain cash flow instead of telling residents to stay home while businesses are forced to close. This headline leaves the question of how prepared local and state governments were when stories about the coronavirus were making headlines almost 3 months ago. There were many headlines about the coronavirus that surfaced in China that were circulating throughout the news before any cases were reported in the United States. Some officials feel that things could be worse, but there are many conflicting views and opinions as the story continues to develop. Story number 3. Businesses in the valley adjust, but many want more information about this coronavirus. After receiving mandates from the state government, many businesses are adjusting to the rules put in place to combat the spread of coronavirus. At the moment, many business owners feel they should have more information, and they also feel they should have a voice in the fight. Many Valley businesses have loyal clients that thrive off of the many services that businesses in the Valley provide. The Valley is well known for hands-on experiences with local professionals, which you can't get in many other places. Now, many of these professionals will be feeling the effects of government control due to the attempt to contain the coronavirus. Story number 4. Coronavirus is already a local job killer. Now, workers all over the valley want answers and want a solution to something out of their control. After many businesses have been forced to shut down until further notice, many local workers have been forced off the job with no voice in the fight. Some do not see a valid plan in place to assist their basic needs without a paycheck, and many don't even have enough savings in their bank accounts. Workers also feel the need for immediate help and will be looking to Congress for that help. Story number 5. Why are so many local residents buying guns? Now, it may be safe to say that even local residents are in panic mode. Not only is it hard to find toilet paper, but guns are flying off of the shelf as well. This report could develop into a bigger story due to escalating tension between the public and government officials. Story number 6. A few cases of COVID-19 reported in the valley. Many residents want to know, how do you defeat an enemy that you can't see? Now, in the midst of the attempts to contain the coronavirus, there's been a few cases reported in the valley, leaving many others in panic mode. The local officials say they are doing everything they can to assist the public and to contain this virus. Story number 7 and the top 2 local stories that made it in this week. Whew, a lot of coronavirus stories. Story number 7. Are local residents forgetting about their fellow citizens, their neighbors, the other people? After tons of reports of hoarding, it leaves the question of hospitality and unity in the valley. Basic necessities have been flying off of the shelves, leaving other community members with nowhere to buy what they need. Story number 8, and the top story that made it in the media this week, local story that is. What effects would a Northside Hospital have had on available beds in the valley? Now, some headlines shine light on why it's important for hospitals to remain open. I've seen tons of headlines about this, about how hospitals have closed, but some activists now wonder about the medical beds lost in the valley due to the closure of Northside Hospital. Such stories could change the future of hospital closures and the procedures taken when hospitals do close, and how communities respond to outbreaks. If this ever happens again, the communities want to be better prepared. Those are our top 8 local stories that made it in this week. Whew, a lot of stories about coronavirus, so keep an eye out on these stories as they continue to develop. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
In the reflection of love, is it possible for one to see hate? Is it possible for one to see 2 worlds? Is hate the opposite of love?
I will do whatever it takes to fall in love.
You're about to experience something real magical. Magical.
At this moment, Nana, you have a choice that I no longer have.
All I've been thinking about is rain.
That's impossible.
Oh no, she didn't. If she hadn't, the sun wouldn't have come out. But she wants to make the move. Say
Well, hurry it up. You know rush hour comes in the afternoon. Alana, I didn't worry about you.
Haven't you noticed how dark it is around here lately?
Dad? What a cute little boy.
Luna, go back to your room.
I don't understand what's going on.
Shut up and go to your room now!
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international stories that made it this week. Stories that you may want to look out for heading into the upcoming months that may be important to you to keep you informed. Let's get to it. Story number 1. How is America handling coronavirus fears? Now, we've seen a lot of stories about people in panic mode, things flying off the shelves at the supermarket, and it begs the question of how prepared Are Americans panicking without thinking first, especially about everybody else around them? This is a developing story that I've seen. I caught a few headlines to show you how Americans are planning and how this could affect the future of how just America handles an outbreak, period, or fears of an outbreak. Some say this virus is being hyped up and is treatable, but there are other conflicting reports that others feel like they're just not handling this virus correctly. There's a lot of opinions about this, and it's starting to confuse people inside of the story, and that's why the story is still developing. Nurses say they are frustrated and understaffed. Many nurses want the next generation to be better trained and better equipped to assist on the workroom floor. This is a developing story. Report by Bloomberg says that in the midst of the coronavirus outbreak, many college students are on spring break and they have been ignoring any news and instead flooding oceanfront states to party. U.S. could be pushing for a $1 trillion stimulus to put cash into the pockets of the American people because of fears that the economy could tank. So you're starting to see government intervention, and you're seeing how this process is taking place and how the United States is handling this virus. Teachers raising money to help feed students during school closures. 22 million children depend on school lunches for a meal when their parents are either at work or not home, or some just can't afford to have enough food in the cabinet. So a lot of students depend on school lunches. As you can see, story number 1 is a developing story. It could be bumped up as the weeks go by if this virus continues to hang around. Story number 2, are we all guilty of pointing the finger at the media? If anybody is involved with the media, they know it is a very, very tough job. You have to stay alert and you have to think positive because you constantly have to read negative news. Sometimes you see positive stories, but those stories don't often get the attention that they need. China is on the radar for banning journalists from many U.S. newspapers. Journalists are often attacked, kidnapped, abused. They're treated this way because they're keeping the public informed about information that they may have about high-level officials that these officials do not want to be spread. Now, stories like this shine a lot of light on why the journalism profession is to be respected and to be taken seriously, especially when trying to regulate those in power and trying to report on those in power, for lack of a better word. Also, keep in mind that the coronavirus could be knocking other key stories out of the headlines. So try to navigate and stay informed as much as you possibly can. I wouldn't say overconsume, but it's good to be informed at a time like this because there's a lot of things happening under the table. Some reports claim that the Chinese government knew about the coronavirus months earlier than it claimed. So you can see why story number 2 made it to the top 8. It kind of homes in on this reality that journalists play a key part in handing out information and getting it out as soon as possible. And when that information is curtailed, you can see the effects that it has on the world, not even just the world, but even local governments. But you can see why story number 2 could develop into a bigger story. Story number 3, is there a trust problem domestically and abroad? Now, a poll by Vice says that many Americans do not trust the information that is being handed down by the Trump administration and even Trump period about the coronavirus. That means there's some speculation going on here. People do not feel that the government is giving them all of the information about what is really happening. There was also a poll by NPR that says many Americans do not believe that the coronavirus is a real threat. Now, this is a developing story that could develop in the upcoming weeks. French priest apparently jailed over sexual abuse scandal. Now, these are all trust issues. People put trust in church leaders, and they're also finding out that some of these leaders have been involved in sex abuse scandals, heavily invested leaders over the years, and some of them are not even brought to justice. This is a very, very big developing story. That's why it's at number 3. Chinese diplomat made headlines promoting a conspiracy theory that the U.S. brought the coronavirus to Wuhan, China. Now, this is an engaging report because some stories in the United States feel that China brought the virus to the U.S. and the world. So you can see these are conflicting stories that could cause confusion because somebody is pointing the finger at the other. The doctors and the professionals are saying that this virus came from a bat, and that's why these stories are being pumped up, and that's why they're bumping a lot of other stories out of the news because there's just conflicting reports, and it's causing a lot of untrust. People just don't trust their officials. They don't trust each other. So you can see why this information campaign is causing so much confusion, and that's why story number 3 is a very, very important story. Is there a trust problem domestically and abroad? That means across the world. Keep an eye on story number 3. It could develop into a bigger story. Story number 4. There are winners and losers in attempts to contain this outbreak. There are some stories that made it in. The New York Times reports how hundreds of scientists are scrambling to find some way to treat the coronavirus, which could lead to a new method on how the world combats diseases. That means we're seeing new ways to combat diseases. They're even trying to push vaccines out in record time and have trial periods. You're seeing people come to the table and finding new ways to do things that could change the way these things are handled in the future. Internet traffic is surging and TV ratings are increasing in the midst of attempts to contain the coronavirus. People are staying at home, so they're watching a lot of news and they're staying up to date, and a lot of people are online. They're saying the environment is benefiting from coronavirus fears, according to a report by CNN, because people are using less gas, they're staying at home, so there are some pros to what is happening. Now we just have to adjust to try to get everybody in their comfort zone. In a report by USA Today, Marriott is set to lay off tens of thousands of workers due to coronavirus fears. That's hitting the hotel industry pretty hard. So this coronavirus is destroying the hotel industry, and it's causing some workers to be laid off, thousands of workers. So keep an eye on story number 4. This story has so many details in it because some people are looking at the pros of this, getting housework done, and some people don't have enough savings. That means there's a lot of winners and losers in this fight. And you're seeing kids not having to go to school. They're losing time developing their muscles. Some of them are into sports activities. So that's why story number 4 is at number 4 and could be bumped up as the weeks go by if this virus continues to hang around. There has been an uptick in layoffs in the midst of battling coronavirus. There are also some other headlines. Coronavirus has interrupted the flow of the primaries in many states, causing many to extend the voting season. This is a big story that is still developing because of the fact that we're in election season and many did not see this coming and they were not prepared. Dow still on a roller coaster ride as investors try to get a grip on this bull ride called the coronavirus. That means stocks are going up and down, and investors are trying to find where they need to channel their money to keep things afloat and to make a profit. The tourism industry is also being hit hard by coronavirus. So as you can see, story number 4 is a big story that is really stirring the pot on how we are handling this virus and how the future of handling certain outbreaks could possibly evolve and change normal protocol and how things are done in the medical field. So keep an eye on story number 4. Very big story. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator. Me, Brian West. We'll be right back.
What does Method 8 Media Center have that I need? Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the performing arts, visual arts, ink, and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer repair, minor cell phone repair, and they're located at 4800 Market Street, Mormon, Ohio, from 10 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Oh, yeah. List goes on and on. And yes, I am a chipmunk.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week in the Mediator. Story number 5. The U.S. workforce is screaming for help. Yes, this is a big story. In the midst of government regulations, economic swings, and now the coronavirus, there are a lot of jobs that are being lost, and many people want answers and a real action plan that is set to be put in place by the government. Trump supports a Boeing bailout, according to a report by CNN. Report by CNN goes all in about what France and Germany is doing compared to the United States to protect their economies. U.S. airlines reportedly want some federal aid in the amount of $50 billion. The story is still developing, but it's showing you why workers are screaming and how workers are screaming for help. Story number 5, very, very big story. Story number 6. Will Trump get reelected? Many supporters praise Trump's handling of China, but many feel he is to blame for a sequence of events. So will this hurt or help him? His base will soon be on offense once a candidate to run against him is chosen by the Democrats. Many independents are also in this fight because they are choosing to stay out of it. Some people are just getting prepared for the sparks that of pros and cons that will soon be flying from each party because somebody wants that seat of power. A survey shows that Trump is still favored amongst evangelicals. Trump branded properties reportedly charge U.S. government at least $1.2 million, leaving the question of how effective a very, very wealthy president is when it comes to saving the United States government money. So story number 6 is almost made as the top 2 because it deals with the fact that we are in election season, people are in panic mode, and people are still asking the question of will this president get another term in office? Is he handling things the right way? You will see a lot of people spewing out information and trying to get you to vote for either this president or the other party. So you'll get a lot of information that'll be analysis, reflection, blaming, pointing the finger. But there is one question that remains: is will President Trump get reelected? And will he get a second term? Story number 7, and the top 2 stories that made in the media this week. Stories that are very, very important that could affect you. Story number 7. How did the rich become suspects? Now, study shows that many scholars are blaming the rich for climate change. The study shows that the wealthy consume 20 times more energy, 187 times more fuel. This is all compared to the poor who cannot even afford such a lifestyle. Some of them can't even afford cars. And the list goes on and on. There are many other reports about people wondering how drugs are getting into poor communities. Now, when they're saying that poor people can't afford planes, they can't afford cars, they can't afford the logistics, so drugs have to be getting into these communities somehow. And some are pointing the finger at the wealthy. This is a developing story, big story. So you see these candidates and you see people who are trying to get a voice in this fight, but you have to have money to pay the bills, and some say the system is unfair. This is a very, very big story, and many are blaming the rich. This is why it's in the top 2, because there's so much going on with, and there was a story I found about a pregnant woman who reportedly died after falling from a border wall between the United States and Mexico. Now, if this woman had money, she would have to go through this, or if she has security, which rich people have. Now, the rich also have a voice in this fight. They're saying that many feel that the poor are contributing nothing to society, so why should they be cared for, or why should they even be given anything? So you can see why story number 7 is in the top 2. It really, really homes in on this battle that has been a problem since the beginning of currency, since the explosion of populations, and that's why this story is a big story, and why it could really, really affect how people are thinking and this market that we live in capitalism in the United States. Story number 8, and the lucky number 8 ball, top story that made it this week that you may want to keep an eye on. There are a lot of people, states, and nations that are not equipped to fight any diseases at all. This is a big story because it shines a lot of light on third world countries, third world thinking, and just people who can't even afford to put food on the table, and now they have to battle a disease. Now, reports by the BBC ask if Latin America is ready to fight the coronavirus. These are poor countries that have a lot of love, but they may not have a lot of academics or medical doctors. So this is why this story made it in. Some millennials feel useless in the fight against the coronavirus. They feel like they should be finding some way to help, but many of them are being quarantined or left at home. North Korea claims to have defeated the coronavirus, and a report by Daily Mail says Australian researchers believe they have developed a cure. The story is still developing. 85,000 inmates set to be released in Iran due to the spreading of coronavirus in Iran's prison system. This is also happening in Ohio, as Ohio is set to release hundreds of inmates in the wake of coronavirus concern. That story is actually still developing. Keep an eye on it. The prison system is being affected as well. African states bordered with Europe are fighting the coronavirus by shutting down their borders. Canada has also decided to regulate entry of most foreigners. These stories are big stories that are developing. It is showing you how some people are just not equipped to fight this virus. Some states, some nations, very, very big story. That's why it's at number 8, because some people just don't have the intelligence, the manpower. This is a very, very big story, and this is why certain officials are handling things the way that they are. So that's why you should pay attention. Who will care for the needy? Now, there are a lot of immigrants and low-income people in the middle of the coronavirus fears, and many of them do not have the means to be cared for. All they have is this news program or other news programs to listen to stay on top of what is happening. Officials try to maintain access to hospital beds. Some states are regretting closing some hospitals. This after a story surfaced about how U.S. hospitals will run out of beds if this outbreak of coronavirus continues to get bigger. Report shows that some countries still have little or no record of outbreak data on coronavirus. Story number 8, very, very big developing story and headline. There are a lot of people, states, and nations that are not equipped to fight this disease. Very, very big story. Those are our top 8 headlines, developing news stories that made it this week. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, if you want to show some support, you go to our website, METHOD8INC.com. It's on the screen, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Every little bit that comes in here helps me continue to go over 200 or more stories a week to keep you informed. I want to thank all the news outlets and journalists that keep us informed, and the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I am just the Mediator. I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week with me, Brian West, and the Mediator. I am out of here. Have a good week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and listen to the professionals. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. Go to the website. It's METHOD8INC.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program.